Hi, and welcome to this lesson on paradiddles on the drum set. Now, most of us know and have experience with paradiddles if you've played snare drum in the school band, or if you're a drummer who's well versed in your rudiments, you certainly understand paradiddles. But applying them to the drum set is something that a lot of drummers may not have too much experience in, and I want to give you a few ideas of how to do that. Now, for drummers out there who aren't familiar with playing paradiddles, I highly recommend that you gain some experience in learning the basic rudiments. It will help you out tremendously in all aspects of drumming, and it will just improve your dexterity and your overall musicality. But just to run over quickly for those of you who may not be versed in paradiddles, a paradiddle is simply two single strokes followed by a double stroke, and it looks like this. I'm going to play it. So it's a single, single, and then a double. A single, single, and a double. Now, of course, you want to get familiar with it so that you can really be comfortable doing it at faster tempos. And you want it to just sort of flow effortlessly. And with a little bit of practice, you'll get it flowing pretty effortlessly. And then so you want to get it something like that, where you can just sort of pull it out and use it when you want to. So what do we do? How do we transfer that to the drum set? Well, there's so many different ways. I'm only going to really scratch the surface with this video. There's so many different ways to look at it, but I think you're going to get a real good idea of some things you can do that will get you going on it and really sound good and are very usable. What I want to do in this lesson, what I like to do with all my lessons really, is not so much give you riffs or licks that you can memorize and use and sort of pull out and see where you can fit them in. I want to give you techniques, concepts, things that you can practice so that you internalize them, get comfortable with them, and then use them spontaneously in the moment to play the music you want to play, to respond to the music you want to, that you're playing, instead of trying to give you something and saying, the next time you're with your band, pull this thing out, it'll be cool, that kind of thing. I really want to give you the tools to internalize these things and then be able to use them in the way that will express your feelings. So let's do some practical things that sound great and will get you comfortable with paradiddles. So we're going to start simply, and we're going to get a little more complicated as we go. So simply, when you play a paradiddle, if we were going to play it on the snare drum, it would sound something like this. You count off time, count off quarter notes with your hi-hat like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then all we're going to do is take that first single stroke, and we're going to hit the floor tom with it. And then the next single stroke will come around with your opposite hand, with your other hand, and you'll hit your mounted tom. So it's very simple. I'm going to start the paradiddle on the snare drum slowly, and then I'm going to transfer the first single stroke of each paradiddle to a tom. And I'm going to be counting quarter notes with the hi-hat throughout everything we're doing in this lesson. And it just goes like this. So get used to that and let's work that up to a comfortable tempo. And then when you get comfortable with that, we're going to now take the second single stroke, because remember there's two single strokes and a double. So now the second single stroke, we're going to move that onto the tom. And that's like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now, once you get that down, move on to the last thing that we're going to do, and that is we're going to move the double strokes onto the tom. I think you can see a pattern emerging here. We go through the paradiddle, and we take each stroke, and we move it onto the tom. So here it is now with the double stroke moved onto the tom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, when you get comfortable with that, the thing to start doing at that point is then to combine the strokes, because working between them, even though they do sound great just on their own, it's a nice little sound, but really the way you can start really incorporating these, you have to start combining all these techniques together. So once you get them down, start to combine them like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now the next thing that I want to do is to start breaking it up between our snare drum and our hi-hat and putting it in more of a groove-oriented context. So very simply, we are still just playing a straight single paradiddle, we take our lead hand, our cymbal hand, and put it on a closed hi-hat. Snare drum hand stays there, and we play the paradiddle like this. Now, the first single stroke of every other paradiddle conveniently ends up with our snare drum hand on 2, on 4, backbeat, and that we give a nice little accent to, and we can lay off the other strokes a little, start getting a little more dynamic. That's the next thing that we need to start applying to these things is dynamics. So here's with a little dynamics, with adding in the backbeat. And the last thing we want to add to that is the foot. And let's just have a lot of different things we can do with the foot, but let's just have, for the sake of this exercise, we'll have the foot follow the right hand and follow the hi-hat. So it would work this way. Now, when we start combining them, so now let's work that one into the combination. So let's do it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can also move it up to the ride cymbal, and hitting it on the bell is a really nice sound. Let's try that. Now, of course, we can combine these things in other ways. That was just one way to combine them. We don't have to do all 3 paradiddles into the combination. We can play the groove and then say, just do the first 2 combinations. That would sound like this. That has a real nice sound. Here's the double strokes on the tom and the second single stroke on the tom with the paradiddle playing the groove as well. That's also a nice combination. Now, as you can see, the more comfortable you get with it, you start to come up with your own combinations. Like I said before, I don't really want to give you riffs as much as I want to give you exercises that will help you internalize these concepts and be able to use them in ways, that will bring out your own style. But you do need, you do still need a little bit of impetus here, a little prodding. So I'm going to show you a few more. Here's a nice one. It's one paradiddle with the accent on one on the floor tom, and which would be our paradiddle number 1, which we did, and then our paradiddle number 3 with the double stroke on the mounted tom. So that basically would go like this. So let's do that with the beat. So there's another thing for you to try. And as you keep trying these different ways to do it, these are just suggestions, mind you. And again, that's the point. You should do these things, but then start inventing them on your own. The beat to, when we're doing them as a groove too, here's different ideas as well to work in. And that is to play the paradiddle with an accent on the 1 E and a 2 E. And then the E of 2 is accented. So it's 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E, 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. This is real nice because both accents come on the strong hand, and it's not too hard to get used to. It may sound a little tough, but once you think about it, it's not that hard because that accent is always the strong hand. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a. Here, let's put it on the tom, see what it sounds like. Start to improvise a little bit there, and that's the thing. Once you get these again into your hands and you internalize them, you can come up with all kinds of combinations. You just let your your imagination and your creativity take over, and your ears, what sounds good to you. Now I want to take what we just did on the toms and I want to move that to the hi-hat. That's another great sound, and we'll do, again, the same accents, but they'll fall on the hi-hat all the time, and instead of accent, well, it will be an accent, but the way we will execute the accent is by giving a hi-hat opening, a shup, to the accent, and that'll sound like this. See there, I left out the first accent, the first opening, and just did the second one. Again, play with it, play with it, play with it. So the last thing I would say is we're moving these things around, and when you get really comfortable, just try moving them any way you like. The great thing about when you take a certain pattern, like a paradiddle, is as long as your time is good, you almost really can't do anything wrong. Wherever you move it is going to sound good. Now, it's always good, I believe, to have intention behind it and control. But you can just keep the paradiddle rolling, whether it's in a groove type situation or a fill type situation. The lines between those things can get really blurred, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So here's a little exercise where I'm just going to start paradiddling around. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I'm just going to paradiddle. I'm going to move the double strokes wherever I feel, the single strokes wherever I feel. I'm going to play the groove wherever I feel, and I'm just going to keep paradiddling. So here we go. I'm going to do this at a nice, comfortable tempo, and this is not meant for you to really try to copy this, but to sort of inspire you to do your own thing. So I'll start out simply, and then I'll start moving it around. Again, that was just improvisation. Once you get comfortable with these things. Now, another thing I want to say is you certainly should be working up the tempo on these things, but don't think that you have to go fast to make them sound good. A lot of times we're playing slowly, and we need ways to do a fill or do something when we're at a slow tempo. That could be the hardest thing, is figuring out something interesting and musical to do at a slow tempo. A lot of times fast tempos can actually be easier. So play them at different tempos and get into the feeling of it. Playing these things slow can feel really groovy. They can feel really nice. And the other thing is, of course, you're not going to constantly paradiddle. So work it into regular grooves that you would normally play. So I think you're starting to get the idea there. Work on them, get them under your belt. Like everything else in drumming, really, you want to play them so much that they become second nature to you. Then it just becomes more ability, more capacity, just another thing that you can add to bring interest and musicality to what you're doing. So work on those paradiddles and comment below. Let me know how you're doing with them and share with me some of the ideas that you have. Okay, see you next time.